Good morning, guys. On Monday, hey, we are going to continue kind of, we stumbled into a little bit of a weather unit here, huh? Last week we talked a lot about water and how vital it is, but also how much water does, in how much it means in our world, especially fresh water, and what it can do with weather. It's things like the water cycle, how it's going continuously all our lives and will be throughout our lives. Now we're going to kind of talk about specifically the people that study weather, and that's called a meteorologist. Now, on page 194 and 195 are going to be really vital to what we're going through, and I strongly suggest, if you want, get your paper packet right now. Put this video on pause. Go grab your paper packet, and let's do this right now as we're going through it, because you can see here when we see the word meteorologist, you can pause it, write down the answer. When you see barometer, you can pause it and write down the answer, so on and so forth. We're going to be going through all of these, and to be honest with you, barometer and anemometer and meteorologist aren't exactly common words that we use all the time, but believe it or not, these are all the instruments a meteorologist uses to study weather. Whoops, I guess I already gave you the answer number one. And you're probably more familiar with meteorologists than you even thought. Because as we go through this, a meteorologist is basically a fancy pants name for a weatherman or weatherwoman. They study weather conditions. They're the one that tells us what the temperature is going to be today, tomorrow, next week. Again, common term is a weatherman or weatherwoman, and the more scientific name is a meteorologist. And here's why they need to study it and what they can do. Because water and land warm and cool at different rates. Here's what I mean by that. If you guys have ever been to the ocean, now we talked about how an ocean is a huge, gigantic body of water. And when we're talking about water and land, we're talking about huge bodies of water, not just a little puddle in your backyard. I'm talking about an ocean here, okay, a really big lake. I'm talking like Lake Michigan or something like that. But water and land do not warm up and cool down at the same rate. For instance, you guys know if outside it is 110 degrees here, where do you want to go to cool down? Man, it feels so nice and so refreshing to go jump in a tank or go jump in a lake if we have them around here, right? It's nice and cool and refreshing. Even if you go out to the ocean, it's really hot outside, but you jump into the ocean and it's a lot cooler. I know it's not cold, but it's a lot cooler, isn't it? See, the land warms up faster than a huge body of water does. That's also why when you go and it might be, 20 degrees outside. I know it's not around here, but up north, where I went to college in Minnesota, it might be 20 degrees outside, but you could go to a lake and it's still water. You say, wait a second. I thought water freezes at 32 degrees, and it absolutely does, but a huge, large body of water like that takes a lot longer to cool down. So the land actually cools and warms up a lot faster than water, which is why in a hot day it's refreshing to go jump in a lake. And even on a really cold day, a large body of water might not be ice yet. It takes a lot of time for it to warm up and cool down. And just how it works. It's also why a lot of times if you go in summer when it's 110 degrees here or in Phoenix and you go out to San Diego or you go out to Los Angeles and you're on the beach, you might actually have a nice cooler wind coming across the water. That wind is coming from the ocean and it's blowing across, and it's cooler because the water is cooler. Therefore, it literally cools down the temperature a little bit in those cities on the coast. That's how it works. So that's what a meteorologist studies. I believe that was the answer to number 1. What does a meteorologist study? Weather conditions or weather. I'd be fine with that too. Now we're going to talk about a lot of different tools. Some are on your worksheet, some aren't. But if you're a meteorologist or a weatherman or weatherwoman, these are the tools you're going to need. Some you're familiar with, some you maybe never heard of. But one that you probably heard of is a thermometer. And you can probably even tell me before I even put it on here what a thermometer measures. And simply the air temperature. If you can tell, this right here is a really, really, really hot day. But this liquid in here reacts to the weather outside and it goes up and down, and it can really, really tell you very precisely what the temperature is outside. And literally, the temperature of the air is what it's measuring. So if it's 75 degrees, that means you go outside and it's 75 degrees in the air. Right? You know, if you look at a thermometer, or I know that on our phone it just has the degrees, right? But what they're using is a thermometer to tell you exactly what the air temperature is. So you know whether to wear a coat, wear short pants, wear a beanie, so on and so forth. Thermometer tells you that. Now a barometer might be something you never heard of. This is an example of a barometer, and you can kind of see. Please don't think it measures clouds, because it doesn't. What a barometer measures is air pressure. Now we're going to talk about air pressure towards the end of this little lesson here. But simply put, a little spoiler alert I guess for the end. When you see H and L on the weather map, a lot of people think that means hot temperatures and low temperatures. It's not what it means. What it means is high pressure and low pressure. And now our bodies don't generally feel the differences in pressure, but there are certain tools that a meteorologist can use that does measure that. Simply put, if you want to remember, when you see an H, that means high pressure. That generally means sunny and fair weather. When you see an L, or low pressure, that generally means stormy and cloudy. Again, we in our bodies don't feel that pressure, but some people, if they might have had a major injury or you know something, you know, arthritis or different things with their fingers, a lot of times they'll wake up on a cloudy day when there's low pressure and they might have extra aches or pains. That is their body telling them it's a little bit different pressure. And you look outside, it's like, I wake up and got this ache, it might be low pressure. You look outside, it's cloudy. Yep. That's just the difference in air pressure. That tells you. Again, H means high pressure, sunny, generally. L means low pressure, and that means cloudy, generally. Which is, I guess, right here, huh? Now, an anemometer. Honestly, it's just a big fancy pants term for something that measures the wind speed. These things you might see in a roof, and they're just going nuts like this. They're going crazy, they're spinning. Well, you can see the faster that they move, the more wind speed there is. You can see this little wire, and this sensor here goes to this wire, and it goes to a little, thing that tells them exactly how fast the wind is. Now, I know you can go outside and say, it's really windy today, but if you need to know the exact wind speed, which some people do, an anemometer is going to tell you that. I believe that was one of your questions there, is what does an anemometer measure? Anyways, let's go to Windvane. Now, wind vanes you might see in old pictures of barns and things like that. There's still some buildings with wind vanes, but a wind vane does not tell you how fast the wind is. It just simply tells you which way the wind is blowing. So you can see this horsey, I know it's kind of hard to tell, but this horsey has an arrow pointing north. That means the wind is coming from the south and blowing up north. That generally means a little bit of a warmer wind, right? Usually southern states have warmer temperatures, so there's a wind blowing from the south to the north. It usually means a little bit warmer weather coming. Differently, if it's coming from the north going south, that generally means there's some colder weather coming. Now a rain gauge. You might see this or something like it. Maybe you have it sitting on your fence or something like that. But a rain gauge simply tells you how much rainfall there is. That's exactly what it is. You can see, okay, we had this many, in this case, millimeters of rain. I think that's, 20, 60, 80, 100 maybe? I can't, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, I guess. 50 millimeters of rain fell last night. That's what it tells you. A hygrometer. You might not have ever heard of a hygrometer, but a hygrometer measures humidity. If you're wondering what humidity is, that's how much water is in the air. Now, generally in Arizona, we don't have a lot of humidity. In fact, hardly any. If you would remember, sometimes we have monsoons. I know this past summer we really didn't have much for monsoons. But if you ever go outside during monsoon seasons, especially soon after a monsoon, and you might just feel like, it's not like the air is heavy, but it just feels like there's more moisture in the air, and maybe you might notice you sweat a lot more easily. That is because there's a lot more water in the air. And think about what we learned last week. Precipitation means water comes from the clouds, and what immediately happens afterwards is evaporation. It's literally the liquid turns back into a gas and goes up and condensates into the clouds, or turns back into water vapor in the clouds. But that's what's happening. And soon after it, of course, rains or precipitates, there's a lot more water around, which means there's a lot more evaporation. That, again, is just simply something that's called humidity. Arizona, being in a desert here, we generally don't have a lot of humidity in the air. But if you remember this lesson, next summer when there's monsoon seasons, you think, the air feels a little bit different. That's the humidity. There's literally more water in the air all around us. Now, as promised, we get to the last slide here. And if you remember the air pressure, right? That was the barometer that measures air pressure. Remember H and L, not high and low temperatures. It means high pressure and low pressure. High pressure generally means sunny. See, look at all the suns right here all around the H's. L generally means, well, it's low pressure, but generally means damp and cloudy, which means rainy and cloudy. That's what low pressure means. That's just the way meteorologists say, okay, there's a bunch of low pressure. That might mean I need to get the rain cloud graphic ready, because generally that means damp and wet weather. So at any rate, guys, I just don't want to talk about meteorologists and weather without talking about the tools that they use. So I hope this helps answer some of that. If you forget or didn't have this out while we were going through it, pages 194 to 197 are really going to help you out, guys. Hey, Lord's blessings to you as you praise your Savior.